It's bad news for Swindon, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's terrible news for the town and for the workers there. I mean, clearly, it isn't totally about Brexit, but their vice chairman, the European vice chairman, made it very clear at the end of the year, last year, that they were reappraising their situation in the UK. And it's obvious why. I mean, they invested in the UK because they saw it as a gateway to the European market. That gateway is closing. At the same time, the European Union now has an agreement with Japan. It makes more sense to supply it from Japan. But you know, there are a whole set of factors.
It's cheaper for them to supply from Japan now rather than go through
a whole set of cross-cutting factors, but this doesn't help.
But if there'd never been a referendum, if we weren't talking about Brexit, the word had never been invented, do you think we'd be having this interview this morning?
I think it's certainly brought on a lot of problems that could probably have been handled anyway.
Right. I mean, we could have absorbed it.
I mean, I dealt with the car industry extensively during the coalition.
Yes.
Went to Honda, amongst other places. It was booming. They saw Britain as a great place to be. But you know, all of the car companies now are reappraising their position.
And you talk about the warning signs coming up a few weeks ago, but actually 6 months ago, Honda was saying they were right behind Swindon. You can't believe anyone anymore, can you?
Well, they did announce that they were going to close the plant if there was a no-deal Brexit.
We're just talking about one plant here, but all the other ones around the Swindon area that now are in crisis and very, very worried this morning for good reason.
Well, it's very sad for Swindon. Of course, Swindon has nothing to do with Brexit whatsoever. If Honda...
OK, well...
Just let me answer the question. Okay. If Honda had actually decided that it was Brexit that was the problem, they would have relocated their plant to a country within the EU. And they haven't done that. And they're also closing
said that they were concerned about the future relationship Britain
they're
was
also
going to have with the
closing
EU,
their plant in Turkey, and Turkey is within the customs union. So Turkey has access to the European market, this so-called access. They're closing that plant as well. Just like the X-Trail in relation to Nissan, all of this is to do with global restructuring of the auto industry because some of these companies have made bad decisions, investing in diesel engines, for example. Diesel we now know is a big problem. And Honda itself is not performing very well as a company.
So you can't blame Brexit, but how does Brexit help it? If we're going into a Brexit future and we are losing investment of this scale, what can we get instead?
Well, we're bound to have this sort of thing happen all the time. We've had it throughout history that companies decide to come and go. And actually relying on multinationals to provide inward investment is a big mistake. What we need to do is boost the economy, the entrepreneurial part of the economy, which is the real creator of jobs and progress and innovation.
How do we do that?
Well, if we leave in March 2029, we will have a situation where the £39 billion that we would otherwise give to the European Union can be invested in boosting the UK economy. We can remove external tariffs, which the EU currently make us apply. That's taxes on stuff coming in. So we can reduce the cost of living for people, particularly on food and consumer goods. That will give people more disposable income, which will further boost the economy. And because the currency is at a competitive value, UK manufacturing industry, for the first time in years, is competitive around the world and can actually sell more goods, which will rebalance the economy towards the regions.
And there's a solution.
Well, this is all theory, but we're not seeing that at all because there's a complete collapse.
Well, what about
it
as a theory? What is wrong with that as a theory?
Well, if we have had a devaluation 2 years ago, it was followed the referendum. It was the biggest devaluation since the Second World War. And, you know, devaluation up to a point does help your export industries, particularly tourism. But it also squeezes people's living standards, and that's what we've been seeing, so people spend less. But the key point about Brexit, which we haven't left yet, but we've already seen, is a complete collapse of business investment. You know, it's in the motor industry, it's about a quarter of the trend of the last few years.
And just setting Brexit aside, and then we're going to move on to what happened to Labour yesterday, but very briefly, and I'm not sure how one fixes this, but there does seem to be an element of folly, doesn't there, in having basically just one major industry providing most of the employment in a region. It's because when it goes turtle, and there's nothing to take its place. How do we deal with that?
Well, how we deal with it, as I say, is to actually stimulate the entrepreneurial part of the economy. Nearly 80% of all businesses in the UK are actually family businesses that are owned by the people who run them. They're the ones that the government should concentrate on, and they've actually put far too much effort into inward investment of large multinationals. It's easy for them to do, selling off the family silver. It's a lazy way of approaching what government do in industrial policy.
Now, Vince, already we see in the very first poll that was taken yesterday, we see that this new sort of centrist group, it isn't a party yet, it may never become one, of 7, they're actually ahead of you guys in the polls.
Well, I think it's inevitable that if we were competing against each other, it would be bad for us and it wouldn't be great for them either. I mean, we under the first-past-the-post system, it makes absolutely no sense for new parties to come up competing with each other.
Do you think you might join up then?
Well, we're not talking about joining up, but we'll certainly cooperate with them in Parliament and outside Parliament.
Are you talking already?
Have you spoken?
Yes, well, of course, yes.
Well, in the last 24 hours?
Over the last 6 months, we've been talking to some of this group, and there is a very clear understanding of the way British politics works. They've had to make a statement about the nature of the Labour Party and Corbyn's leadership. We fully understand that. But I think if there is any sense, I'm sure there will be, there is a recognition that, you know, we have the troops on the ground, we have best part of 2,000 councillors, we have 100,000 members, we have an infrastructure, and it would make perfect sense to work with them. When we have common values, for the most part.
So what would your conversation be then? It would be a conversation where you'd form a joint party, rather like we said?
No, I don't think we're talking about a joint party, but we're talking about an alliance of some kind, working in Parliament and outside.
And who have you spoken to?
Well, I've spoken to several of these groups, and others who haven't yet.
Have you spoken to
No, I'm not talking. Well, yeah, I mean, he's a good friend. We've worked very closely on fighting Brexit, and that will continue. But no, there are good relationships, and I expect this to manifest itself in a cooperative relationship.
And you say that your party and this new centrist group have common values. Can you just tell us what the main ones are?
Well, I mean, we have stood together against Brexit. They're very. You know, the hatred of racism is very clear, anti-Semitism. They're very strong in supporting Western Alliance, which is one of their big differences with Jeremy Corbyn. And they readily support our approach to the economy. We support private enterprise, but in a mixed economy. Our approach to, you know, fairer systems of taxation. I mean, there's a lot of areas
when you
talk
about an alliance with them, which is putatively sounds like it's already on the cards, do you really mean absorbing them?
No, we're not talking about them absorbing us or us absorbing them. You know, there is a respect for the fact that they've come from a different place and there are things they wish to say about the Labour Party and their relationship with it. We totally respect that. And they wish to maintain their identity, which is understandable. If
you did form an alliance, however loose, do you think you could take on the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn, let alone the Tory Party?
I think simply as a split from the Labour Party, this movement isn't going to get big. I think what is absolutely crucial is that the very deep divisions in the Tory Party also liberate some of their people, because if the Labour Party splits, all that happens is it strengthens the Tories under our system. But I think if we get the people leaving the Tory party, as I think they're bound to do, given the way that the Tory party has emerged increasingly militant in this Brexit world, I think we will see that happening, and something new and exciting will happen in the centre ground of politics.
Are you expecting any more people from the conversations you've been having with other members of the Labour Party?
I'm not in the numbers game. They know this much better than I do. I would be surprised if there weren't more.
Right.